everybody, I'm the Drink Pro, and today I'm drinking St. Cloud Bourbon Batch 2. What's up everybody, Kyle the Drink Pro here with you yet again. Thank you so much for watching. Like, subscribe, share this video with your friends. Consider joining the Patreon and getting extra bonus content on a regular basis. Please check me out on any social media platform. I'm all over the place. The Drink Pro, that's me. I really appreciate all of your support. It means the world to me. It's the only reason I can keep making these videos. Today, we're trying a fun little pour from a relatively new whiskey producer. And I say whiskey producer because I'm not sure if they are distilling yet or not. What I do know is that they are sourcing this whiskey, well, let me be clear. They are contract distilling this whiskey in Kentucky. They are using a high malt mash bill, and they are using a combination pot column still. Nonetheless, it's a pretty small batch whiskey. They made 2,400 bottles of their batch 2. It's a non-chill filtered product. It's at 118 proof. Now, St. Cloud was started by a guy named Ray Walker, who used to make Grand Cru wines in Burgundy, France, and has now decided to start making whiskey in the United States. Unfortunately, I don't have much information for you about the company or their process because their website is pretty nondescript and doesn't disclose much information. That really bothers me. I mean, even if this is a fantastic product, I implore you guys at St. Cloud to consider being a lot more transparent. And I think, optimistically, they will be. Some of their new products coming out are going to be single barrel products with age statements. But I don't have the bottle, so I can't be certain if there's an age statement on this Batch 2 St. Cloud, but I don't think there is. So I'm not certain even what I'm really drinking here, which is unfortunate. At the end of the day, everybody's contract distilling with the same people. Everybody's sourcing from the same people. Yeah, you might change things here and there, but share that knowledge. Be a part of the community. All right, I'll get off my soapbox now, and we will try this whiskey. By the way, while I'm pouring this, big shout out to Joe Brown. Thank you so much, my man. He provided this sample for me, along with some other really cool ones that I will be reviewing in the near future. This one has already had some drink out of it. If you watched one of my recent live streams, I honestly can't remember which one, but one of my recent live streams was finished with the St. Cloud because the people on it really did not like this whiskey. I think that's because it's a high malt mash bill and they were bourbon people and they're not used to that malty characteristic that's going to be more prominent in something like a single malt scotch, but I will hold my judgment. Going back to their process, and what we do know about this whiskey is that after it's contract distilled, it's aged in new white oak barrels that are sourced from France. Yeah, this smells like a scotch. One of the things I saw on the website was it said it was a high malt mash bill. You can really smell that malt. It's the sweetness, it's the grain. So people might ask, what does malt smell like? I talk about that a lot. Well, malt has a grainy, sweet, this is going to be kind of weird, but it's in between a narrow sweetness and a broad sweetness. When you think about a narrow sweetness, I think of like corn syrup. Or a broad sweetness might be like creme brulee. It's creamy. Or molasses. Grain sugar and cane sugar are very narrow sweetness. Even like some fruit sweetnesses. So the lemon citrus, if you get like a sweetened lemon, like a lemonade, that's going to be citrus and a narrow sweetness. This to me is sort of in between those 2 points. It's a middle of the road sweetness. Maybe more akin to like a caramel kind of sweet or a honey kind of sweet, in terms of how it approaches your palate. It does have a little bit of that corn note and a little bit of light caramel and vanilla, things that you remember it's a bourbon from, but almost entirely on the nose I would assume this was a scotch. Or at least a single malt American whiskey. It does not smell like a bourbon, even though it is a bourbon. Definitely vanilla and caramel, those are the predominant bourbon qualities, but they're pretty subtle. The malt sweetness is really predominant. Like a sweet cocoa, like a cereal quality, maybe a little bit of honey, and a little bit of like a honeysuckle, a touch of herbal note on the nose here. I maybe get a hint of a spearmint, but there's a lot of things I really find and enjoy in bourbon I'm not getting in this. I'm not getting any fruit notes, hardly at all. Maybe just the slightest bit of a citrus, like just a touch of orange, but very muted. I'm not really getting anything oaky or nutty either on this. It's mostly just a touch of floral, a touch of fruit, and then lots of malt and a lot of sweet. I'm not even really getting much baking spice on this. All right, let's go ahead and taste this. That tastes like the most neutral, unoffensive, unique. That's not a word, but it's just very pedestrian in terms of the malt. It's just a very average, everyday malt characteristic. I'm not getting anything unique out of this. Which, I think this was a $100 bottle. Joe would have to confirm that, but it should be more unique than this. A little bit of bitter herb, lots of grain, little honey, very cereal, maybe a hint of cocoa. Maybe you get a hint of an almond in the mid-palate and finish. Maybe a hint of the fresh oak. I don't know. There's just not much going on in this. It's not bad. I don't find it unpleasant. But it's just very... if somebody handed me this and said, what do you think of this? Without any more information than all of this stuff I've listed for you, I would smell it and go, yeah, it smells like sweet honey and malt. And I would taste it and go like, yeah, that tastes like a budget scotch. It's like a malty budget scotch. And it's not budget and it's not scotch. So I guess for that, it's interesting. It's unique in that it's defying expectations. Not really defying them in a good way, though. I'll be really curious to find out what kinds of things are coming out of St. Cloud when they're doing these single barrels. Like I said, this was contract distilled, so it should be relatively young. And I will say, to not just totally shit on this whiskey, it does not taste as young as it is. I don't know how young it is, but I guarantee you it's not as old as it tastes. If I had to guess, I would say it tastes like an 8 to 10-year-old scotch. And I think it's a 3 or 4-year-old bourbon, probably. Which is really interesting. It's cool that they're doing something that tastes so much like something else. They're kind of defying expectations. The problem is they're defying expectations in the wrong price point. If you're going to make a $100 product, it can't taste like a $50 product. So, that's going to take some tweaking, perhaps. And the interesting thing to me also is that if you read the reviews for the batch 1, they were pretty high. People really liked it. As I spend more time with the nose, it's becoming more and more floral. But the palate to me is still just straight up malt. Maybe a little bit of a bitter herb in the mid palate, and the nuttiness starts to show up a little bit more, but it's very uninteresting. You'd never know. You'd never guess in a million years this was 118 proof. No way. It's just nothing like 118 proof that I've had from both Scotch and American whiskey. The price point is all wrong on this whiskey, but that doesn't mean it's a bad whiskey, and that doesn't even necessarily mean it's a bad value. It depends on what you're doing with your dollar. I probably would not buy this whiskey. But if you want to support these guys and you think they're going to do something cool, or if you know personally Ray Walker, maybe you should buy it. I don't know. There's just so much going on in the whiskey world right now that a small distillery that's trying to get started, that's, contract distilling, it needs to be at least somewhat different. One of the things I liked about Rabbit Hole, which is kind of a spoiler for the future, I'm going to make some Rabbit Hole content, but they started doing contract distilling as well, but they had a different flavor profile, and it kind of felt unique. And even though the whiskey space is very, very flooded, they made a product that was sufficiently different to stand out. This one right here for me is not standing out, and I look forward to trying some of their other products to see if they get a better sense of how they want to define themselves. To me, this is a really good, average whiskey, and now it makes me go, all right, what else you guys got? So I look forward to seeing from St. Cloud in the future. I wish I could give this whiskey higher marks, but at its price point, it's just not drinking like it should. It needs to be more complex. It needs to be more desirable. It's just too flat. C'est la vie. All right, you guys, keep drinking like professionals. Cheers.